Dr. Kimberly Muktarian and Brother Ausar, Amen. With special guests every week. You can follow Africans United Know Thyself Black Power Radio on Facebook.com/Oak 93.5. Or you can engage in conversation by calling 919-899-9305. Once again, each and every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. right here on Oak 93.5.
Peace to the elders, the ancestral giants. Peace to gods and goddesses past, present, and future. Peace to kings, queens, and royal families all over. And peace to you, brothers and sisters. You tune into Oak 93.5 FM, Africans United, Know Thyself Black Power Radio, where ancient wisdom meets modern truth. And with today we have the Honorable Brother Ausar, Amen.
Anakasar, a BB 448, African liberation, black liberation. African power, black power, for every black man, woman, and child on the planet. We are the original people. I am the original man. I am a son of Africa. Peace to the listening audience.
And we have the Queen, Dr. Kimberly Muktarian.
Good morning, listening audience. You are tuned in to a great word, great wisdom, and great power. Stand strong and rise up.
And we have a special guest today,
Yes.
Brother Michael Stewart Escents.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hello, everyone. Michael Stewart Isaacs here. So excited to be here to have the conversation today with the honorable Brother Ausar. This is my good friend and Dr. Kimberly. We're excited just to have this conversation. I'm with the organization called I Am Brilliant, and I'm excited today to just have a great conversation about how we continue to empower our people.
Okay, and he has his lovely wife sitting in with him.
Oh
and
yes, let me represent my wife. If she want to come on the mic, her name she'll talk about herself.
Peace and blessings, everyone. My name is Shemeka Ebony. I'm grateful and honored to be able to be a part of this session today, talking and listening and growing together as community, because this is what the village looks like, and I'm honored to be in the presence with you all.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yes. I'm Essence Divine, and today we are taking a deep and necessary look at education reform for African American children. It's about more than classrooms and test scores. It's about equity, culture, discipline, opportunity, and the future of our children. When we talk about education, we're also talking about justice and, very importantly, identity. Let's start with Brother Michael.
Yes, sir.
You want to give us your why and your full circle of...
Yes, I appreciate it. So for me, I am so grateful to just champion the conversation of education reform and what our community truly needs in regards to the identity that's shaped by education. How you see yourself is so deeply shaped. And for me, growing up in the environments, I grew up in Southeast Raleigh. I went to Carnegie Middle School. I went to Southeast Raleigh High School. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, came and transitioned. And North Carolina was a safe haven for me in a lot of ways. And education was something that was always seeming so far away in terms of having reading issues and different disabilities, and having that to really kind of shape my why. I learned through the path of the right teachers, having teachers that look like me to help me understand who I was, and what was tied to that was so important to my identity. But also the transformation happened when I realized that, you know, entrepreneurship and things of that nature shaped me early. And a lot of my peers weren't getting those cues. They were getting athletic cues and those things that were the path for them to grow, but they weren't necessarily being told that their minds can take them anywhere. And so for me, you know, growing up here in Southeast Raleigh and seeing the imagination over the years, what community leaders like these phenomenal giants are over here doing day in and day out to continue to make sure the community has a voice and our children are centered in a way that we see their full potential and what they can become and what they're doing. My why is deep because I'm rooted here in the community, and I truly want to see our people do well with what's available to us and how we see ourselves in the educators who mentor us and shape our identities.
I'm going to dive right in strongly here in just a second. You said something that sparked the question, why is it important for Black children to see people like themselves educating them or helping them grow?
I think everything we do in life is patterning, right? When we look at nature, I always tell the best way to know who we are as African, diaspora. So my background, so I can kind of give a sense of my deepness to this, right? My family is immigrants, so we all have this immigration thing going on. My mother's from Sierra Leone, West Africa. My father's from Jamaica, and I was born in the North and lived in the South and have seen the full complexions. And one thing I've learned is that when we see ourselves in the people who are shaping our identity, it makes all the difference, because we even see that reflected in our community, is that when we've seen the brokenness of our men, or we've seen that we still disciple that information or teach it in the ways, even if that's not what our intent is, right? So when we have identities that are empowered, that have ownership centered, all these different things. And when I was young, I had a principal at Southeast Raleigh called John Modest. He passed away. But this man really was very intentional in what he wanted to showcase in terms of the intelligence of the community and what was there. And just to see that he didn't have to be a superstar, he didn't have to be a celebrity. I know we have great basketball players, and that's kind of where we always get kids. They see themselves from even everything we see is education.
That's
I think
true.
that's the part that gets misnomered, right? We think it's what happens in the academic institution versus our day-to-day behaviors in our households, as well as what we do in a community setting, right? And so everything is educating our kids. And so once we start to change what we're seeing from an identity lens, everything starts to blossom. And that's what we're all trying to foster out here.
That's a powerful point. Everything we see is educational. So true point. Let me get into the state of crisis just a moment.
Yes, sir.
So we can walk down this path. The racial achievement gap in reading and math has persisted for decades, not because of lack of ability, but because of systemic underinvestment and policy failures. Schools in predominantly black neighborhoods are disproportionately underfunded due to property tax-based school financing, which ties school quality to neighborhood wealth. African American students are suspended and expelled at 3 times the rate of white students for the same behaviors. Excuse me. The school-to-prison pipeline is a structural, not individual problem. Many black children attend schools lacking certified teachers, updated materials, mental health counselors, and adequate facilities. So, Brother Michael, what are your thoughts on the apparent inequities with suspensions pertaining to black and white children and the systemic nature of the school-to-prison pipeline for black children?
Well, I would defer if my wife, do you have an opinion on this question? Because I think you are more, so part of what we talk about, again, let me educate now, right? Household is important, right? And me and my wife we're both, we built ourselves here in community. And part of what we want to do is always share how we talk through ideas and concepts. So for me, I would say I would defer to her for this kind of question, because I know she would give the people better wisdom and what to be said. So I'm going to do that now.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you so much. And I value so much the question raised, because this is something when we're trying to be contemplative for change in our community, as parents, as activists, as leaders, we have this opportunity to have this self-reflective moment lead us into what can I do? Aside from deficits, aside from what may feel like inequity, what can I do in my power to be that transformation that I want to see? Because when we see the change, when we see people doing what needs to be done, then we out exercise the excuses or limitations that we may feel. So how can we activate ourselves? What are we doing aside from what's not? I have an abundance mindset. I teach that with my scholars. Abundance is so significant. Even with everything that is failing around us, we have something so powerful inside of us. How can we activate that? And in its fullest potential of illuminating, now you have a beacon light in community, in the household, in families, in schools, that even if the regulation and the empowerment is coming from the janitor, because that's the only African American in that facility, then what can that janitor do if that janitor, he or she, showed up and gave 100% of the essence of what these children can become?
Nice. And Brother Dr. Kim, I want y'all to weigh in on this suspension and this pipeline to the prison.
Dr. Kim?
Well, the pipeline is designed, and so what has happened is they've hired more of themselves in blackface. So when you have an institution that says in order to be successful, you must come by way of white supremacy, and we'll make sure you're taken care of, but you have to remain silent. See, that's the crime. The crime used to be you have a right to remain silent, and what they've taught our people is that once you become a part of the institution, you must remain silent. And so we have those who have gone through these institutions, received the degree, received the student loans, are in debt, but they are depleted of their own mental health. They don't own themselves. So you can't help those who you are so-called teaching or managing. If you're superintendent, if you're the principal, you just have to go along to get along. And what has happened is, if this is institution, and you have to remember, we had our own institutions at one point. And though, like our sister said, this was not about resources. This was about our own mental intellect and the power that we have, because African Americans never asked for resources to be successful. We utilized each other. We were each other's help. Now we demand this huge budget that we get no real outcomes to. There you go. So every year the budget comes out, they give millions of dollars, and our communities look the same. The pattern looks the same. And so our children, while we can take, for example, the city of Raleigh, number 3rd place in the nation to live, yet our children want to become rappers or basketball players and get out. So while they're saying this is an opportunity, we're saying get us away from here. Somewhere there's a disconnect in the message.
There you go.
Somewhere along the way, we're not hearing education, because education doesn't spew that. So again, when we talk about prisoner pipeline, really you're already self-proclaiming your prophecy that says this institution does not work for me. If there is a such thing as a prison, school to prison pipeline, because we're the only ones who are affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
Yeah, brother, sir.
Yeah, I mean, what the two sisters said are right on point.
Yes.
So I don't have too much to say, except I concur with, both of the sisters, like I said.
Yes.
And that is definitely by design. We definitely have to put a stop to the school to prison pipeline. And the school to prison pipeline, mass incarceration for black men and women, is not a natural phenomenon, right? So, they target us. So that's something that we really got to take serious. And they used, unfortunately, the educational system to do more harm than to do good amongst our people. And that's why I really like this topic and really appreciate, our special guests for them sharing their knowledge and wisdom on things that we can do to help our children to overcome the systemic challenges that we face.
Yeah.
May I add a
Yes.
quick point? And
Please.
for all the wisdom shared, the thing I would always say to the work that I do is about stereotyping. I think part of the systematic issue is that the system is designed with, almost like you look at a digital kind of framework of zeros and ones, right? They want to make things binary in terms of choices. And when they see our children, they want to label us so quickly. My wife talks about that a lot in her work, that sometimes we get labels that are designed to help them categorize and make decisions faster. But the decisions always leave us to the point of a prison pipeline, because what they're doing is, think about it, we from K to 12, we're almost giving our kids 12 years in an institutionalized fashion where they don't feel free, they feel held. And so we have to understand that education and knowledge pools were never meant to be like this. Children are learning beings from the beginning. We should be learning from them, not us trying to force them to learn a system has failed us from the beginning. I think the problem is that we have not celebrated the right energy that has always progressed us. I look in this phenomenal studio and I see inventiveness and I see ingenuity and I see that building and that manufacturing mindset that doesn't just have us working on the assembly lines, but it has us coming up with the whole engineering process and the setups. And I think that's it. You fight systems with systems. And as soon as we start, they keep us distracted and messed up with the musics and all these different things, because as soon as we understand that all we have to do is put our own system together,
That's right.
that's what they're trying to corrupt. It's like it's already in us. Think about it. We were the most valuable commodity brought to this country. Do you
Yes.
believe we lost your value? That's the question you have to ask. So the education is just to make you somebody's ability to be free labor at some point or affordable labor.
That's
And so
right.
you have to understand your true worth and your value. And that starts with our homes. That starts with the way we're built. It's not about, yes, as a community, we've been disheveled. Yes, there's welfare program. Yes, you can give me the history of how we got here. But in this current moment, every single one of us in community can educate our kids, empower them, tell them they're going to be special, not just making them tap dance to the latest bippity bop song, but really letting them know that they're owners and they're builders. They can be more. They can own stadiums. They can create
That's good.
spectacular things. So I just want to share that because stereotyping and allowing them to label us is what's harming us in a system. So to combat that, we must be prepared to make our own.
Yeah, and so sound like something he's saying. We need to be developing talents of our youth instead of just sitting them there and trying to conform them into being like worker bees or whatever.
I mean, I really like that. If you don't mind, brother,
Go for it.
the stereotype
Yes.
that he's talking about, which basically comes from propaganda. And we spoke about this about
Yes.
soft power influence, right? And a lot of the soft power they use, and I was going through this with my Jegna, shout out to Baba Akmos, and that is like when we first enter into the school system. You know, we learn what? The Pledge of Allegiance, right? They start teaching us lies about this country, right? The land of the free and brave, but yet we were enslaved. So a lot of things that are contradictory, but are used to influence us to think that this is the best country on the planet for everybody except what? Black people, right? So I think that it's important for us, to understand that our education has to be an education for liberation, right?
go.
To liberate our minds and our bodies and our spirit and understanding who we are, self-knowledge, self-consciousness, the knowledge of self, which basically is the greatest knowledge that one can have. It's dealing with our history, and it's dealing with our culture, and it's dealing with our ancestors and what they brought into the world, what they brought into existence, the high ethical values and principles that's been stripped from us. Once we were brought over here and enslaved, not only here in the United States, but all over the world, and then with the colonialism and imperialism in Africa. So the education has to be an education that's geared around our culture, our history, our development, and what we have to do moving forward to liberate ourselves and liberate, our future generations.
Nice. So
And can I also
Adam.
say one of the other things that I notice is that sometimes our creativity is stifled because we don't see ourselves as a part of the very work that's in the land. So when you hear for 400 years you were enslaved and this belongs to someone else, then it's very difficult for our children to make the connection. They sing this land is your land and this land is my land, but what they show you is that I will water hose you down if you try to vote. I will lynch you. So the demographics and the atrocities that are passed down to our people is not one of real ownership to the when or to just creation itself.
Can I add to your point?
Please, sir.
And I love what you're saying. And I think what's happened in the psyche of that condition she's talking about is that we've become owners of the story. Even if the story is not in our favor, you will own something, even if it's not. And I think that's the hardest part I've seen in our community. And I'm saying this as a diasporian. My family's from Africa. My family's from Jamaica. I live in America.
Right.
I see all of the problems. But what I see is that from a traditional standpoint, it's the ownership of the narrative that we have taken on. And for us to liberate ourselves, we got to create a new narrative.
Yes. Absolutely.
And we got to own that. And we can't wait for them to give us the narrative.
That's right.
We have to empower ourselves to realize we're bestowed. I would say the condition is like this, because we're talking about education here, right?
Yeah.
the deepest part of my work focuses on language. And throughout my years, even though I'm talking about being a part of diaspora, I realized that I had to learn 3 different kind of languages to survive. I had to learn the language of my mother's home tongue. I had to learn the language of my father's home tongue. And then I had to learn the language of the streets in Brooklyn and that energy. And then come to the South and take on the history. And the one thing I realized with it's the words we choose. And yes, it's not so much about 4 years. I don't call it slavery bondage because we were never enslaved. We were always defiant. We were always fighting. We
That's
were
right.
always pushing
Tell
for
the-
this thing
tell
we
the
call
truth,
freedom
brother.
every day because it's in our nature. It's not something they can take away from us.
Right.
So my thing is that when it comes to language, they've had a head start on this language. And we are now trying to master this conceptual nature of ownership through a language that is foreign. That's why when they get you, they give you these long contracts. You get a cell phone, they give you these long contracts. They give you a bunch of words. Because what's happening? They're spelling. They're using grammar on what you're doing to put a binding on who you are. Their whole language, think about English, Anglo-Saxon language. It was words pulled from Latin, pulled from here. Why were they pulling so many different languages? Because they were casting spells on you. So until you get out of the spellbind nature, and when we talk about teaching, we really get to the root of the why we do any of this,
That's right.
that will free us to what we can create freely without any hesitation that money and currency is not attached to. And
That's
that's what
good.
we got to build from.
That's good. That's good.
All right. That was very awesome, right?
Awesome.
Yeah, that
Right.
was. I love
Right.
that.
Yes.
Let me go back to the school to prison pipeline thing real quick because we are at I think in that state of crisis I was reading, we 3 times the at expel and suspension rate. So if we're going to a penal education system or a punishment, where they highlight punishment first to get us down that pipeline. How do we combat that penal education system a little bit more?
Can I give a quick suggestion? If that's
Yeah,
okay?
I want everybody because everybody get some feedback on this.
Yeah, so I would just start off to say, just imagine. I start with imagination, right? To combat is the question, right?
Yeah.
So we know they're going to do what they do in their system, right? And my thing has been we have to come up with our own, right? AI and technology is a new freedom tool that you just have to learn the translation of that new language, right? But imagine if they took our kid and one of our kid was put into ISS, right?
Yep.
But in our community, that kid comes home and he feels free that he can tell mom or dad or whoever that I was put in ISS and we create a database, right? And we're now keeping a record of what they're doing because now we want to be intentional as a community to love that kid and give that kid more support so he's not feeling like he's labeled by this identification or this moment of a mistake or you get what I'm saying? Like we have to be intentional to change the energy that we put around the things that we gave them power to put over us. Right. We're giving it too much power. I know a lot of people incarcerated and they may be listening to this, but they still find their own power even in that moment because they can't take it from you no matter where you're at because it starts with that imagination. But in a system of technology and opportunities to really help, I would say we would need to start to be intentional how we love on our children by identifying the ones who need it the most.
Yes, that's number 5 on the foundational pillars of Maya, essentiality of moral social practice, which says that the only good that is done is the good for those who need it the most. And I agree 100%. And also when we're talking about educational reform, right, and we're talking about the school to prison pipeline, it's obvious and it's clear, that it's a design operation by the federal government, right? And we have to really take responsibility. And I agree with everything where Brother Mike said as far as the imagination, because everything starts with the mind. That's why when we teach the students at KCSSU, the first one is control your thoughts. But what are those thoughts made of? Those thoughts need to be centered around African-centered principles like Maya, truth, justice, and righteousness. How do we get through that? Through growth and development, through our teachings, through our teachings of reasoning, right? because the wisdom teachings, which helps us with our reasoning to be able to think clearly, right? Meditation helps us with our focus, helps us with our will, right? Devotional love helps us to love more than just ourselves or our individual families, but to love all humanity and to love nature in creation. All of these things are important in developing ourselves, which helps us to know who we are as a people. Self-knowledge, the knowledge of self. The knowledge of self is the key to our transformation, because if a people don't know who they are, and then they're going to be able to be led and to think the way our oppressors want us to think, which helps them to label us and prepare our babies for prison based off of EOGs and other statistics that they use to base. And we think that, okay, well, the child is in the 3rd grade. Okay, he's 8 years old. In 8 years, he'll be eligible for prison. It goes that fast. And I think we need to really, as a people, take a look at it. And a lot of our professionals and our professional educators, they have to get some courage and stand up against this injustice. If we don't, that's why I appreciate Brother Mike, and his wife, because of the work that they're doing and identifying the design to harm our children instead of helping our children. And that's our responsibility. Because like Dr. Kim said, Raleigh is one like the 3rd best place to live in the United States, but it's not for us. It's for others, for Europeans, right? So we have a responsibility as African people, as black people, to do for self.
Yeah. Something else Dr. Kim said was they got white folks with black faces. I might not say it like she just said it, but the educators are, I guess you'll say, following the curriculum. I don't know if they know what they're doing or if they don't know, but they are just following the curriculum.
If I can, what the brother said, Brother Mike, when he said as far as being intentional, that's so important, right? That we be intentional in understanding who we are as a people, understanding our culture, and doing as much research as possible to put us in a better position as a people.
Yeah.
Well, I think what I hear you saying, Brother Escents, is basically our black faces are indoctrinated and not educated. And when you're indoctrinated, you only operate from a place of survival. So you can't be civilized and be animalistic at the same time. Survival basically says that you are just fiending and fighting for your life. So that is the position that most of our people play when it comes to living in these institutions. They're not there to correct anything. That's why your penal system doesn't correct. It may say correctional institution, but they're not there to correct anything. They're there to continue or manage what slavery has already done.
Yeah.
And so, and as we well know, that slavery never, I won't say slavery, kidnapping and exploitation never ended.
Yeah.
It just transitioned or transferred itself into another form of cruel and unusual punishment. And really, I don't think that even we see that the education system, quote unquote, that we're in is one of just simple plantation management.
Yeah.
Instead, you have paid slaves, and that is what we're dealing with. And you cannot be a free thinker, and it manifests itself in our communities. So before we even get to the prison to school to prison pipeline, we have to look at what our community offers. We're not talking about children. We're talking about the adults. What they were adults before they were adults. We have adults before we have these children. So what did these children have to say about what we present? We went through the same school system.
Oh, yeah.
I heard Brother Michael say he went to Carnage and the Southeast High School. So then if we look at our communities, what is it that, if they came home from that school, what do we offer?
There you go.
How healthy is our community? That tells you that we are all in this form of under management of a slaveocracy, I hear Brother Ausar say. So we're still under this form of colonialism and imperialism that we haven't disconnected totally from. And until our educators say, listen, hold on, this is not what we asked to be attached to when we did integration or forced integration. We put ourselves, and I think this is what Dr. Martin Luther King said, I think I've sent my people into a burning building. Right. Mm-hmm. So having this concept that if we are amongst them, that we would do better. Mm-hmm. And instead, we look like we're doing worse. Why? Because immediately after, quote unquote, slavery or the emancipation, it showed in 1898 when they sabotaged Wilmington's wealth from the black community, that we were reading at higher levels of literacy than the average white person in Wilmington. And we accounted for 60% of its population. So they drove us out by wealth. They drove us out by political power. So this is an assault. This is not just school to prison pipeline. This is an assault on the entire black community. And this is the outcomes, is prison.
There you go. There you go.
And, oh man, you just said in Wilmington, you said we was reading at a.
We was reading higher than the average white person.
Right. And now
and we accounted for 60% of its population because there was a port city that brought in the slaves, the human trafficking. And so it was more of us there than in almost anywhere. They took us in at the port, and then they pushed us into the inner parts of the state.
Right. So we was reading, like when we in our own communities, and when we got them communities that's thriving like that, we, even the reading, math, science, all that, we're up above what they call it, the level above level.
Yes.
That's deep right there. That's something to think about, because now they got us, and I'm gonna go right into this. What the studies show that African American students are at the low end of the achievement gap compared to white students. So what solutions can be initiated to close the achievement gap in literacy, math, and science now?
Can I jump in? So as an educator in my just core, throughout my career, I'm always about self first, right? In terms of improving self. Mm-hmm. Throughout my years, I've kind of learned, I feel like I had to lean on community, a black teacher that helped me read when I was 14, 15, and knowing that one day I may want to go into business, but I wouldn't be able to read a contract. So what was I going to do, right? So I had to admit in front of that person and humble myself. I think you touched on something wonderful, Dr. Kim, and I'm going to kind of circle back, but it was just about the adults, right? We have a lot of hurt adults that have been hurt by abuse. They've been hurt by negative talk. They've been hurt by a system that their parents and their grandparents were talked down to, kind of consistently going here. One thing I would pull us away from over time is comparison, right? Yes. We got to get out of the comparison game.
Right.
We are us. If we want to compare ourselves to someone in West Africa or even South Africa, then that's fine. But us comparing ourselves to the others anymore is not going to help. It hasn't helped, and it never will help. But there are other benchmarks that we can start to compare our communities to, and we can be intentional to track that data with technology. And Brother Ausar tested him from that day he met me. I've been talking about new technologies, all the different innovations, and that has become a new liberation for those who know that at the sound of my voice, they know what we're saying out here, that this is there. Now, the other part that I would really tap into is intentionality. We talked about that earlier. So myself and my wife, we have an organization called I Am Brilliant. We do work in community. We consider ourselves a community media organization because I worked in media for many years, and I was trained by the people who paint the illusions over our eyes every day. Mm-hmm. And once I realized that they were training me so I can manipulate and dupe and get the numbers that they needed for their profitability, I could no longer stand by that. So I found this phenomenal woman almost 11 years ago that in that I wanted to make community famous. I wanted to make leaders like her and Kim famous for what they do. Brother Ausar knows I've been rooting on for everything he's been doing for years because we needed to put the light on the right people.
That's right.
I've worked with the Jay-Z's of the world. I've worked with the Kanye's of the world. I've worked with the DMX of the world. I promise you, I'd much rather work with a community leader in any one of these states, any one of these countries, any one of these cities across America who are really doing the work to help people. And they've been the great change agents of education over the years. So now I got off my rant with the comparison side. Let's talk about an actual solution. So in the last few years, me and my wife together have 2 sons together. We have 6 kids overall, but 2 sons together, and we've been developing. One's name's Chi, which means God. Our other son's name is Ade, which is crown, Ade Maximus, which means crown greatest. Chi Alexander, which means God, defender of man. We made sure from the day one, I encourage everyone out there, education starts with every moment. Name your children right.
That's right.
The sound of their name has a meaning to bring back what Ausar is talking about in terms of us bringing our cultural relevance, what we call our children. Even if you have a name that's unique, create a definition that stands by your personality. So that's stage one.
That's good.
With that being said, entrepreneurially, ownership-wise, we've created a new educational product called Chi-Max. It's a 13-card set game that's designed on key things that will help empower our people. That's focus and that's building our memory. And as we continue to empower our mind, we talk about mindset from saying positive affirmations, but we're not doing anything to really strengthen our mind. We are now an African-American owned and led company that's built a strategic product. People who are in the positions of power will talk about, I'm playing chess on those people. People in positions of power will make it as if they're playing some kind of game with your life because they have
That's
an
right.
utmost strategy above you. So now I encourage you to be informed about what Mosaic, MOSAYK.com is doing with Chi-Max, because Chi-Max is revolutionizing how we can strategically think and improve our minds. And that's what we can do, is be inventors, be creators, have not just real estate property and those kind of things, but own intellectual property that comes from our mind, that is truly fashioned out to serve more than just ourselves, but serve people. And the last thing I would encourage to that is we have to create businesses and economics that are so, if you think about the term blacksmith, right? That was us. We were actually the blacksmiths, the ones who can craft and forge the things that others could not do. So we have to understand there is a standard in being black owned and black made. But just like people buy Italian goods and other luxuries and so forth, all we have to do is set the standard and bring that value into our community economically, and we will produce our own economy overnight if we just understand that core principle of how we're communicating ideas to ourselves. And so I'll share that and any questions from there, but I appreciate just kind of touching on solutions for what we can do.
Brother Saw.
Yes.
He said
I
a
really
lot.
believe in solutions, you know,
Yes.
and I really believe in, you know, us being creative and tapping into our, you know, natural gifts and genius that we have within us. A lot of times that our children are, you know, labeled like we discussed early, and basically in a sense, discouraged from having any type of, you know, positive images of themselves or those who look like us, you know, black people. So I always go back to the knowledge of self, self-knowledge when we're talking about improving ourselves as a people. And when we're dealing with the youth, the mind is so impressionable, right? And that's why it's so important for us to understand that we can be just as brilliant as we want to be, and our children are just as intelligent as they want to be, but we have an open enemy that tries to counter everything that we do as a people. That's why we go back to self-knowledge, because what that does, it helps us to understand how we have to protect ourselves and be ready for anything that they do that's going to counter us. We've been showing this evidence by what Dr. Kim said about what happened in 1898, which shows our ability. So we have to really get strong as a people, right? And we have to really, you know, get those of us who have the ability to reach the masses of our people, because it's going to take mass organization for us to get in the position that we need to get into as a people. A few of us can't do it. 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. It's the responsibility of every human being to promote order and truth, which is in our principles. So we have a lot of work to do, and I think that, you know, in our principles, number 10 has the ability to distinguish the real from the unreal. We have to be real about the challenges ahead that we have as a people. And we have to be, and I love when Brother Mike keep using the word intentional.
Yes.
Right? And we have to be deliberate. Remember the Mangamizi, right? Which is a Swahili word, which means how they intentionally and deliberately destroyed Africans and African culture, right? So to reverse that, we have to be deliberate in our approach. And I say that, the knowledge of self is the key, one of the keys to our healing, and one of the keys that's going to be of most important for our liberation. And if we continue to get miseducated and they continue to send our young people to prison, the task is going to get harder. That's why it's up to brothers and sisters like us in this studio, and other qualified brothers and sisters with the knowledge of self to really unify and put a stop to the school to prison pipeline and all the other injustices that take place for black people.
Yeah. And one thing I talk to my children about all the time is keeping their imagination, using their creative wisdom, their innovation skills at all times. Even while they're sitting in the classroom, you finish doing whatever work you got, they'll pull out a book and start writing thoughts down, start doing some poetry, start do a comic book, anything. Just stay
mentally active.
Yes. So let's jump over to the curriculum and cultural identity. So 3 points here. First, children learn better when they see themselves in their education. A curriculum that includes African and African American history, literature, and contributions year-round, not just in February, builds pride, engagement, and identity. Point 2, KCSSU's Know Thyself principle speaks directly to this. Self-knowledge is foundational to learning. Education that strips cultural identity is not neutral, it is harmful. And the last point here is ethnic studies programs have been shown to increase attendance, GPA, and graduation rates among black and brown students. So I'll start my question again with you, Brother Michael. What role does cultural education play in closing the achievement gap?
I think as we were just touching on through it, I think seeing yourself is so important to how you become. I think when we think about, I love talking about nature, because I think what works best for us is when we get back to nature, grounding ourselves. And when you put a rose by roses, they're going to grow roses. And you put certain seeds in the ground of what you are supposed to be. No one can change that nature of what that seed is. The key is about how you cultivate it, how you tend to it, and good mentorship, good teachers, people who care, that look like you, that care about your development. That's the key. If we get back to the days of when we used to watch shows like the Cosby shows and Different World, and those images of seeing ourselves, those things discipled us and taught us a way of being, and it has benefited so many. What has happened is the distortion that we see that's happening for our community, that they try to give us images of the images of individuals who will land in prison. Let's say that, right? I don't want to tell my people we were wrong for being ourselves, right? As someone who truly comes from an African family, I know the dress codes can be different. I know the expressions and masks and the way we want to show up can be different. So I never want to stop us from that deep nature of our identity, right? To show up as we want to is free, right? Because I think Kim touched on that in terms of them trying to assimilate us to what's appropriate. And then our ancestors, for the best of their ability, they thought the best way forward was assimilation for us, right? And I'm not going to get deep because I can get deep, but there are certain people and factions within our communities who wanted the proximity to whiteness, wanted the proximity to their wealth, the proximity to their access, that somehow discounted the communities that they came from. With their best intent, we discounted ourselves in the midst of all of what we're doing in this. So what I say is that we have to start with the fact that, yes, the system is how it is. Our kids have to legally go to the schools, right? But there are options. I know people fight about where you put your school, but the best education, and number one, every day I wake up, and I think I love what you said earlier, brother, about your kids and encouraging them. But one thing I tell my kids every day is, I am your number one teacher. Me, your mother, we are your number one teacher. These other educators, these other people, we're allowing them to put information in your mind. But we are your number one teacher. And I think as a family, as a community, for those who don't have the ability, for those who are trying to learn what the ability looks like, there are opportunities now with the information, all the YouTube positive videos, all the best of your ability. Always try to give some kind of edification, some impartation to your kid that is directional to gifts and talents that are that of yourselves, to share with them that is there. Just like we would do with basketball. If a father was good at basketball, he's going to say, I was good at basketball, son, you should be too. So if you're good at math, son, if I'm good at math, you should be too. You know, it's that kind of change of attitude that, like Kevin was saying, it's the intent that we have, right? The intention that we set forth to change how we use their words. They're going to do what they do, but they're not ready for what we ready to do. That's the difference. And again, teaching starts at home. Mom is the first teacher. If it's not a mom and dad household, dad and mom are the first teachers when it's there. If they're apart and they're working together, you still the teachers. Let's work together. Let's make sure the best opportunities are available for our kids. Let's lead the fight and in the chaos, because those things are education too.
It's true.
Yes, indeed.
The behavior.
That's right.
That's what we're talking about here. The
That is
behavior is not the behavior of our kids who are being now treated bad because other cultures don't understand our way of being. But it's the behaviors that they're seeing that's educating them, that if we just start changing what we're doing, that first education, by the time they go into school, it's like, I want to be like them. Not just because of our athletic talent and all these other things, but how we carry ourselves, right? That confidence, right? Sometimes that does breed the jealousy, right? So we know that's part of what we're saying here too, right? That calls for attack, but that should never dim our light. It should have never dimmed our light. In any of these cities, any place that they burn, that it hasn't. Look at us.
That's right.
Right.
Every day we should applaud ourselves for how wonderful we already are. And applause to Africa.
Yes.
They pushing every day. So I just want us to remove the language that has been pushed to us for people who try to assimilate and realize that we have the right in this day and age in how we educate first at home to be great every day, and nobody's in our way.
That's right.
Except for how we keep telling the story.
That's right.
And y'all just add in.
I was gonna say,
whenever-
Sister
yeah.
Shamika from the Shamika. I hope I'm saying it.
Something that I am just admiring and hearing is, and I've seen it in working in communities across the country as well as here, with intention, our parents have to step into our ownership as teachers, as partners and collaborators. When we had to transition from being in urban-based schools here to rural-based schools, I knew what the statistics could look like for my brown boys. So when I began to start with their year, I knew everything about the school. I knew the school rating. I knew who the principal was. I made contact with all of them before the year started and introduced our children. This is who they are. This is what they're passionate about. This is what they can share with you. This is how they learn. They're experiential students. We travel a lot. We bring them with us. They may miss a lot of school, but they can also give you a report or a PowerPoint on what they did while they were gone. So I began every year from the oldest to 21 and now the youngest being 6. Every year I'm talking to the teachers, and it is an ongoing relationship. No, I may not show up at a PTA meeting, but you're going to know who I am, and you're going to know who my children are, and we're going to set an impression on how they can learn, and children that look like them can learn, so that there's no mislabeling of our children. There's no misidentifying of their creativity with an assumption of lack of attention span. My children are they're smart. We've literally gone from our now 4th grader being at the top of his school.
Come on.
We had him in a dual language immersion school for his first 3 years of education. In rural community, he was the top in Spanish and English. Our kindergartner started kindergarten in August last year. By September, he was in a K-1 school, and we just met with the principal about 1 or 2 weeks ago, and now he's going to be in 2nd grade.
Come on.
So it is the power of us knowing that we can go into these school systems. We can communicate what our expectations are. Our children have $1 on their head.
That's right.
And I've done this advocacy work back when opportunity scholarships were a thing. I've been at the Capitol. I've been talking to these elected elected officials and those that are representing our educational voice. And the consistency that I found across all of it is our kids are worth $5,000 to whatever school system. Why can't I go in there? If I pay anybody else $5,000, I'm going to make sure they do what they're supposed to do and I get the quality of what I want.
That's right.
Why do we miss this access to money that their money on our head? They get paid for our children every year, and we're not going in there with standing in more ownership and power of our role as parents in partnership with these education systems that we already know that we aren't doing the best in our communication with. But also, I want to highlight the point that we came out of these same broken systems, and we sent out of control, out of manipulation of our mindset. We still send our kids to broken systems because this is what we feel like we have to do.
Come on.
And if we really want to change it, let's get into the policy. I did a lot of work around creating the Crown campaign. I founded that. The Crown Act worked not only here in North Carolina, but nationally. But we started to work with school systems about changing grooming policies that was putting our children in ISS for violating or their hair looking unkempt or those inequities that we had to do. But I didn't just sit back and take it. I got behind other community leaders and I said, you know what? Let's write policy transformation. Let's do some policy memos on what needs to be changed, because we just assimilated it too when we needed a job. We just assimilated it too because we needed somewhere to send our children. And so we got to step back into our power as parents to know that they're looking at our kids as a commodity in a school system that is not built for them. So what are we going to do to make sure that the $5,000 that are on our kids' heads are well invested for their best interests? And that's going to automatically and autonomically create a pathway of what's possible for others.
That's so good. That's so good. That's good.
Yes.
I want to commend the sister on the work that she's trailblazed in just protecting our children and our image, because if we don't protect it, then we'll self-internalize the lie, and that in itself promotes self-destruction. Mm-hmm. We become our own worst enemy because of what someone else said. Mm-hmm. So we have to be mindful that we're not just playing offense here, we're also playing defense. We're not just educating our children, we're also teaching them how to resist what it is that is coming our way. And if we think that, just teaching our children about themselves is enough, no, we also have to teach them about the enemy. Mm-hmm. See, the enemy will tell us that we are resilient. Resilient indicates that you take a good beating. Look at how well you bounce back.
Say that.
Versus resistance is what we should have. No, we don't take beatings no more. And we don't need a banner or a badge or an award to do so. Mm-hmm. We are resisting you, and you are outright a violation of humanity. So by now, looking at all these things that we call systems, we should have had resistance. Yes. Not assimilation, but resistance. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so that is a twofold track of war that we should be executing. And it is to let our children know who they are, but it's also to say, when you see this, this is an enemy. When you hear this, you should reject that, not absorb it, not learn how to get along with it, not learn how, I want to just touch base on the Carmelo Anthony. I know y'all scared out there, but let me say this. Carmelo Anthony showed you that he's not doing nonviolent approaches no more. See, our ancestors taught us that, if you want to vote, you're going to have to be nonviolent. So you're going to have to take the water hose, the dog bite, and let's not forget that February the 1st of 64, 68, we had two black male garbage men who wanted shelter. And what happened to them on that truck was that the compactor crushed them to their deaths. But it didn't start from the malfunction of the truck. It started from the malfunction of their system that said blacks were not allowed to come in on the inside of the truck during rain.
Wow.
Oh, come on, y'all.
Wow, that's powerful.
You just shed that light on me, yeah.
Right. So 100 years later, we give this to the next. We didn't correct it because they've taught us to wait on justice. Mm-hmm. We're going to fix the policy later. We're going to get to it. And so what happens now is when you have a Carmelo that says, I'm going under your tent for that same rain that crushed the two black men 100 years ago. And for you, your same actors to reject you. So we have to learn how to now set the record straight. That we didn't kill you because we wanted to kill you. We killed you because you were going against humanity. Something that was what we should have been fighting for a long time ago. We didn't get no badge for being nonviolent. These people are the same people that were violent then to us as they are now, if not worse. Now they're even the more blatant. And so we don't give a badge to any children or anyone who creates violence. But guess what? This whole community of what they call a country is based out of violence. And what they're saying is you don't have a right to defend yourself. And then we create stuff that says we won't defend ourselves. We'll just be passive aggressive. And though I love the nonviolent approach, we have to also understand reality says that we must stand and resist. And whatever that looks like is what it looks like.
I don't think that you could practice nonviolence against violence. I don't think we'll win like that. I think that, you know, and really that's just our heart of being humanitarians.
Right.
You know, while we take that position a lot of times. But, you know, and I see a lot of people are really, you know, upset about the injustice, but this is nothing new.
That's right.
This has been going on, and we have to stop living for the moment.
Right.
And understand that we have to have an organized movement so these things don't happen. And I was studying this week about mobilization and organization, Kwame Ture, right? And he made some real valid points because mobilization just is something that's temporary.
Okay.
But organization is long-term strategies, plans, organizing, right? And we understand that when we're organizing that we're going up against an enemy.
That's right.
That's going to counter anything that we've done. Just like when they, burnt down Wilmington.
That's right.
Bomb Tulsa. Anytime that we're making progress, right?
That's right.
As black people, as African people, we have got to get strong and be courageous and understand what type of enemy. Because Dr. Kim was right on point when she said, not only know thyself, like Sun Tzu said, know thyself, know the enemy, and know the terrain, know the environment, right? That's why they don't want true history being taught in the school system.
That's right.
Because they don't want our babies to understand how we got here in the position that we're in today, right? The school system is worse today than it was when I was in the school system.
Wow.
Decades and decades ago, right? Because they weren't intentionally trying to target us, label us,
That's right.
and give us psychotropic drugs and send us to prison. They weren't. It wasn't a design plan the way it is today, right? So we have to put protection on our children. We have to put protection on our young parents. We have to put protection on our communities. And we can't be afraid to speak the truth
That's right.
about a corrupt system and what this corrupt system does, right? Can the devil be reformed? Which is one of the questions that the Nation of Islam asks. And the answer is
emphatically no.
Emphatically no.
No.
Right? The devil can't be reformed because of the level of corruption that they practice. So the only way you're going to have to deal with the devil is in a divine way. And that's why it's so important for us to raise our consciousness so we know how to defend ourselves.
That's right.
It's going to take a revolutionary approach, right?
The archangels.
And we know with a revolutionary approach, right? And one of the things that Kwame Ture said, any type of progress that we have made, we had to shed blood here in this country and globally, right? And it might come down to that again because we know how violent, that's one of the tactics that's used. That's why they got the police force, right? Over-policing our communities. A threat of what? Force. A threat of violence. We talked about that a few weeks ago. Repressive state apparatus, right? Which is when they use what? The police department, prison, the military, right? So it's important for us to understand the level of consciousness that we have to rise to as a people to deal with the open enemy, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad stated.
I mean,
No, please.
no, please feel free. Feel free. No, please.
We want to hear you, brother.
I want
Yes,
to.
go on,
No, Brother
Well,
Mike.
no. I am just definitely taking in the conversation in regards to, there's a lot of strong points that are being made, and for me, I'm always about the next. Right? You've talked about resilience being kind of forced on us, and I agree with that.
Me too.
And I think I've been working with 2 double R's recently, and that's us being responsible and resourceful. Right? We're in a time now where we have to start to be strategic and silent in how we go about taking responsibility over resources.
good.
Because as much as I'm talking about a system, I'm ready to show how that system gets made. I'm ready to make sure that system has the water supply and it being clean. I'm ready for that to have the medical care that our elders will need. I'm ready for that system to have more and be prepared for a real nuance of what's going on. And it comes back to that behavioral aspect of it, right? We have to almost change our behavior and go from a loud revolution to a whisper revolution that we're only telling ourselves. Because what happens is we psych ourselves out telling everyone the plan open-handedly, and then they find a way, they just told me the plan, and now they're going to dupe you into your own plan. If we don't play a different game, we will never get to nothing more than the same conclusions. And part of what we have to do is continue to uplift, educate with awareness of what our elders of the past have, but at the same time, from a traditional standpoint, there are always going to be good and bad that we take away, right? But I think common sense of our nature, our young people are seeing it, right? That's why they've rejected everything that has come before. I mean, open rejection, rebuke, even the things that we thought we would never see our community be or do. We are it for the open rejection of everything else. That's how oppressed and compound the pain has been for our community now. So as we look at the healthy-handed way of going about this, it got to start silently. It has to be intentional. And it has to be in a way that we're starting at the households into the communities, and we're communicating ideas that start to be in a position to take responsibility of resources. Because until we start to really change that mindset, look at brother Dr. Umar. Finally, right? People judged him, but he finally has his school put together, right?
Yes.
I remember when the brother came here to North Carolina years ago. You remember that,
I
brothers?
remember
You
that.
know? And he was always pushing this vision, right? And people wanted to judge it. But yes, in the environment, doing it independently, it took a little longer, right?
Yes.
He did it with the community, did it with the people's help. But we know that his intent is to educate, give the information, and empower. So we have to look at those methods that now he took maybe 7 years to do it. Now we can do it in 7 months because he's shown us the model.
That's
right?
good.
We got to learn how to duplicate, even though some things initially may take some time. Once we see it working, oh my goodness, let's replicate it. I have 2 young sons who are entrepreneurs who are getting attention right now for their work. We're not just doing that for the sake of making money or just building another business. We're doing it because we understand the example is going to cause all these other young kids out here in their households to say, you should do the same thing. And it's already happening. The intent does not have to be screamed out loud. It's a different, we talked about propaganda earlier. I call it entrepropaganda, right? We got to be entrepreneurs, propaganda. We got to put that energy into our people that we great, we owners, we have it. And it started. It's not that I'm saying anything new, right? If you're paying attention, anyone out here to the zeitgeist, it started.
Right.
We just got to acknowledge it while not forgetting the history of who we are, the history of the past, of what we came from, but be so grateful for the seeds. One thing I always say when you think about life and nature, right? I always go back to the spirit of a gardener, right?
That's right.
How do you grow the greatest crops? With a bunch of shit, right? With a bunch of bull doo-doo to make things grow. And you get what I'm saying? That's what I mean. Like, so we've been through so much. Just imagine how fertile this garden is about to grow when we really let it go. And that's what we're pushing right now, is that kind of mindset. So we call that brilliant. We are brilliant.
Yes.
Think about black as brilliant. That's all we are. We know who we are. Now let's show the world.
That's good.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, let's dive forward a little bit to teacher diversity and training.
Yes, sir.
Only about 7% of public school teachers are black. Representation in classroom matters. Students with teachers who share their background show measurably better outcomes. All teachers, regardless of race, need training in culturally as responsive. Somebody give me, what's this word?
I can't see it.
P-E-D-O, P-E-D-A-G-O. Say that again.
Pedagogy.
Somebody tell me what that means.
Pedagogy.
The way you teach something.
Yeah.
Okay.
The style of teaching, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going back. I'm gonna start this point over. All teachers, regardless of race, need training in culturally responsive pedagogy, implicit bias, and trauma-informed care. Invest in growing pipelines for Black educators through HBCUs, community scholarships, and loan forgiveness tied to service in underserved schools. And of course, y'all, and again, feel free to jump in, answer, when you can. But Brother Michael, can you speak on the reasons why the percentage of African American teachers is so low, and what can be done to attract more African American students to become professional educators?
It goes back to how we started the conversation, to identity. I think in our culture that we have seen, media and mediums are so important. And through the media and the medium, what we see all the time, again, as we've been on a broken record for as long as I've been alive, is you see athletes, you see entertainers, you see the baseline. Because what happens is when a kid is growing up in their imaginative world, they look on the camera and see a TV, right? And maybe another culture might see an Albert Einstein or something else that looks like them in science or something else, or astronauts. For us, we just see the entertainers, the ones that we love and we admire, but we see them. And so what happens is a young kid says to their self-esteem, well, that person's on TV. It's a very logical conclusion the kid comes to, right? Is that I see that person right there and I want to be like that, because that's what people value in our society when it comes to my likeness, right? So until we now use these cameras to get the opinions of the teachers, to get them seen in a way that is dynamic, we have to fight dynamism with dynamite, right? You understand? Like, we have to make our educators as big as our entertainer stars. Because if we do not take that level of care, we will continue to lose them to every rapper that wants them to be a drug dealer or a drug user, and every young woman that's being pushed towards sexualization or prostitution with every word, every lyric that we're hearing. We can't keep pretending we're not hearing what we're hearing.
That's right.
We cannot pretend these things anymore. We cannot pretend, like Brother Ausar said, that the medications that are coming into our communities, not just our children, even our adults, are under attack. All this is to prosper off of our people's little bit of economic wealth so it can be drained out of us and go into their worlds for them to have the benefits of what we call privilege, right?
That's right.
The privilege has always been us. We are the value. We just have to learn to really value the healing method. When someone tells you something new or a new dietary thing, don't shut that off and be like, oh, no, that's not it, right? So, again, what we said earlier is the real truth is the system is going to be the system. You can give me these statistical numbers. First teacher has to be the family, the household, the parent, the grandma, whoever's the responsible one. The most important resource is the children. Brother Saul, we talked, that's how this started. He fights for these children. The most important resource is the children.
Yes, he does.
If a society does not understand that, we are, like, even for what they are trying to do to our kids, not create all this is by design, because they've made a decision of who we are in society. The only way you can deal with the devil is you got to know how to negotiate. You understand? You got to know how to negotiate your terms, but you got to have your armies. You got to have your leverage. You got to build. See, we talk about it, but are we prepared to really put it in position? I can tell you where the pieces are. Are we ready to put the puzzle together? Right. Because it's happening. I'm not speaking like, I hate when we speak like it's not happening. There are black teachers going to schools right now getting the chances. Do they get a chance in a rural community? Do they get a chance in urban cities, right? They're competing. Everyone is competing. We're in a competitive world. So just like we've trained in sports, we got to want to be the best teachers. Yeah. But we got to create that esteem for teachers again. We got to create that esteem for the institutions that we want our people to dominate. We got to have esteem, because when we have the esteem, we see what happens. Go New York Knicks.
Let me say this real quick.
Did he put a plug in this for the New York? I'm glad I'm not a Spurs Brother Michael.
So we know we got a lot of black educators out there,
yes, sir,
with passion.
Yeah.
That really care.
They do.
But they're being trained still
by the same system.
That is correct.
Right. So
That is correct. And let me say this, and I know how often I've said this, that when I went to college, I remember going to school for the criminal justice program at Wake Tech. And I was appalled because after looking at some of their main textbooks, I found out that the HBCUs were using the same textbooks. So what does that tell you when we start talking about liberation? Some folks will not be able to come with us on a liberation journey because they're already being taught by white supremacy to maintain white supremacy versus change the dynamics of white supremacy. So are we becoming, we have to ask ourselves, what are we becoming? Because who we are is what we pass off to the children. Are we indoctrinated and not educated? So we have a bunch of teachers, but what are they teaching?
there you go.
And then we can look at our outcomes to tell us what that is. Are we holding our black people accountable for what it is that we expect from them? I don't really expect too much from those with white faces. Don't get me wrong. You know, I expect them to be human as much as they can. But when you tell me, Brother Michael, like you said, when our children see somebody that they can look at and relate to, that means that we have a higher demand for how they translate information, how they protect us in these institutions, and what will they do to put themselves on the line when they see it is wrong? Or do they continue to go along to get along? They know they're not going to get a raise. They know they're not going to be promoted. They know that, come on. And then when we look at in its entirety, we have an administration right now that says if you even mention 3 letters, you won't get funding. You won't even get your bills paid. So now we went from acknowledging what is right or wrong to now saying nothing. You can't even mention what it is that we should be seeing or saying. You can see it, but you can't say it. So the concept in Wake County says, if you see something, say something. That is their bullying policy. But the entire construction of education in America is built off bullying. When we had our own, it was burnt to the ground. We were forced integrated. We didn't come because we chose. We came because they forced us. They forced us. And so we never addressed that we're still in an abusive relationship, as one would say.
That's what it was.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
To the sister, Shemeka, and that is dealing with, because I know that you deal with
Yes.
policies, which is very important, right? And on the legislative level, right? What is it that we can do, like the way y'all had changed the parents' policies, you know, that were harming our children? What can we do to put protection on our children from being labeled? In the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, they wrote a letter of apology to the Association of Black Psychologists, apologizing for intentionally and deliberately not only misdiagnosing the children, but adults as well, and putting them on psychotropic drugs. What kind of policies and what type of effort, and what's the process for us to put things in that will protect African-American children, black children?
Oh, that is a great question and great opportunity for us to get more involved civically. I think that is like the number one thing is being comfortable learning about what policies are in place. So if we look at it from a local level, do you even know your kids' school grooming policy, current grooming policy? How is it showing up in school? And then it could be whether you rally your neighborhood moms, having these conversations with other parents that have faced some inequity, may have been sent home for various reasons, misunderstanding of a black child's reaction or response, lack of translation, lack of interpretation of a black child's behavior. Those things may have policies that are pushing for that, I guess, the action against our children. There could be existing policies that need to be addressed. So whether that be just knowing that whether or not a policy exists. And then I also co-author something called the Community Bill of Rights. There's another version of a Parent's Bill of Rights, but that's, again, how you can get involved civically. You can get those turned into resolutions for your local government.
That's right.
If once you have it on paper, you at least have the beginning of protection.
Yes, right.
There's still more. You have to make sure that you have activations in place that hold someone accountable when there's a violation. So every bill on the books doesn't have teeth to activate punishment for when something is not followed. So there's that accountability portion that comes in that we can be intentional getting in the forefront if we have a protective Bill of Rights, a Bill of Rights that acknowledges the security of our kids, making sure that we're giving them the language and how to help our kids.
That's right.
And then and what I learned even at the national level, people like our elected senators and representatives would prefer you come to them with something already
That's true.
than for you to just say, hey, there's a problem.
Fix it.
It saves them that research and that energy and that time because you've done it. And then you become the expert that they're going to turn back to when this comes up, whether there's a countermeasures, some support put into another plan that could impact this. They know that you have something
That's good.
that can contribute. And that can come more specifically at the community level, focusing on what you do at your local school. And the same principles and practice and engagement can follow you all the way up to the national protective level.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
Nice. So, what should parents demand from the school board?
That's a good question. I think what the parents should demand is their involvement, right? I think we got to stop looking at the schools we are the citizens. I think this is something I used to speak of years ago, which is that citizenship should be, look at what's happening, first of all, right? What is being violated today's inequity, right? Is those who aren't citizens are being they're being harassed and taken over. But we who are citizens aren't using the full inheritance of what that citizenship means. And that's a distraction. That's done on purpose. The laws, understanding how to repeat it, recite it. Just like you're not going to really feel like people going to feel like you had a spirit unless you say that Bible verse the right way. Right? Y'all felt that, right? You understand? It's the same truth when it comes to their laws and their tactics, right? If you don't say it the right way, if you don't articulate, Shemeka did a great way of breaking down a policy and the research levels of starting it, right? But then there's that politician, right? A brother like myself, right? That's articulate, that can speak. Because if you don't have those places, the people who are the researchers, the people who are the writers, the authors, and then the person who can articulate it, to negotiate that, the one that got the legal degree, or the ones that have the doctoral degrees, or the scientific data to bring. See, they want us to come lacking. Right? But as soon as all of us best them by having it all put together, and that's what these great civil rights leaders did. They didn't come with just a little bit of a one sheet or a 3-page letter. They went deep in terms of the problems, the solutions, the leaders who were leading the methods. This is what these people are here displaying today. Our hosts are just really trying to give you the knowledge so you can put the pieces together. But ultimately, as we really get into our households, I keep bringing it back to that. It has to start there. We cannot keep passing the buck to someone else and saying it's their fault or their problem. Teach my kid. No, you teach your kid. You position your kid, because statistics show, just even with sports, the parent's involvement in whatever the child does leads to better outcomes. So if we want to now really just change the priorities and be intentional that we are not just sending our kid to school, we all going to school. Yes, we do have to come and do the 3rd grade homework with the kid. Yes, you got to be there, because if they think if your kid knows that you can't do their homework, you think they're going to take it serious? No, we have to example everything we want to see. And it is daunting. It is tiring. Yes, you want to watch the Real Housewives like everybody else, but you got to default that, because that imagery, that energy in the household is not bringing good results to our own behaviors, our marriages. It's all connected. And that disruption is what we have to really be mindful of getting to, because the knowledge is there.
That's right.
It's just the disruptions are there too. And think about it, the disruption, demonic, frequency, energy. That's all it is. It's just distracting you from your identity, so you don't know who you are, so thus you cannot exercise the God breath that's in you to do the purposeful nature thing that's going to come out regardless if anyone waters it or not, because it's in you. They can't take it from you. So education has to start with education of self, not just said, but truly explored. Let your child make a mistake. Stop the nose in the store. Yes, let them touch all the product. Let the employee do their job and put it back on the counter. You don't got to buy it, but let them be free. Like, everything we have to do, we have to change how we are doing every measure of psychology if this thing is going to work, and we're going to start to create the reforms that we want. It starts with us, and then our ability to say, this is who we are. We got ourselves together. Here's our demands. Here's what we want. Here's our angles. Here's our towns. Here's our community. Here's our water systems. Here's our private police officers that we want to institute. You get what I'm saying? We got to come with it before we keep telling them we want you to do it for us, because they're going to keep giving you the same old thing.
Right.
And let me hear you, Brother
That's
Michael.
right,
That's powerful. Let me say what I also hear is that we're still asking for permission.
There you go. There you go.
We're still asking for permission. I remember working at the Board of Election, and today somebody make election day the federal holiday. Well, let me tell you something. White people were already bringing their children in.
Mm-hmm.
They took them out of school already. They made it their own personal holiday to make sure their children knew the process of voting.
Owning the citizenship.
They was already teaching them ownership of the voting process, of what it meant to choose. They was letting them look at the ballot. And so when I look up and saw none of us with our children, then why are we now arguing about, they're trying to take our voting rights away? We have levels and dimensions of seriousness about what is at stake. Mm-hmm. That is why we're so comfortable giving our educational power over to the oppressor, because we don't even take education serious ourselves. And so we don't challenge the information, we don't create the information. We just go along because we're still in management survival mode. And so that has to change, but it has to be addressed that there is a problem. And I don't think, honestly, that our people understand that not knowing and not doing is a problem. We've been allowed to live, but that doesn't mean we're not walking in excellence. And right now, what we need to be is walking in excellence. And I say this all again, we can correct most of the pipelines by just intervening with excellence. We let them call a whole theory, and we didn't stop the theory. Mm-hmm. The theory is real, but we should have our own reality.
There you go.
Where is our comeback?
That imagination.
Come on, where's our comeback? Like, where's our outrage that there is such of a thing?
Can I say something to the sister's powerful point? To that point, I can call myself all kind of mental labels. They've tried to label me throughout, but I live in my imagination, right? Good. So if you tell me DEI, right, them scary letters that people are scared of today, don't want to say it anymore, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion, right? If that's gone, then that does not mean we're defeated. That just means we can go through the front door instead of the back, because that was still a backdoor tactic that they were still putting on you. Yes. So don't let them demand the moment right now. Say to yourself, no. Okay, you taking it away? Oh, that must mean we can go through the front door whenever we want.
That's
because
right.
It's no longer us getting set asides and small percentages, but we want the full contract. For those out there who understand what I mean, when you're out here building government contracts that can provide jobs for our community, when you're out here trying to build and connect with your community leaders and provide resources, that's what we were talking about. All this is an education that we truly need, because the kids are going to school for what? To one day come out and make sure that they're responsible enough to manage the resources of society. What has to first happen is we got to get out of our mind the illusions of this inclusion, as she said before, but also too, we got to stop wanting their stuff. We got to stop wanting it. We got to stop wanting it the way they give it to us. Right. You know, my wife talks about this funny thing, talk about tiny homes. We talking about a housing crisis out here. Stop wanting the big mansion because you saw somebody in Richie Rich when you were a kid and you thought the big mansion make you happy because you grew up in the hood. No, you get a tiny home, you bring all your kids, you build up your neighbors, your community, your cousins, and get everybody building. Let's buy streets again that our whole family's own, with land that we can all buy, prosper, build the plumbing. Be intentional. It is happening. and it needs to continue to happen. And if you don't know what it is and you can't understand what I'm saying, look it up. You'll see an example, and then study that example once you find it. The thing is, again, we got to realize that our people are screaming that there are solutions. Part of the work we do with I Am Brilliant is get our people out of silos of repeating the same echoes and echoes and echoes, and start to cross-pollinate just like the bees, bringing new fertilization, ideas from Detroit, ideas from Denver, ideas from this place, ideas from LA, ideas from here to Southeast Raleigh, ideas from Southeast Raleigh, and take it to Miami. Because we're doing great things here, people. These leaders here are doing great things. So first, I want to applaud the efforts, as opposed to thinking that nothing is happening. Because too many times it gets numbing to keep hearing as if people aren't out here day in and day out doing the work. I want to root for them just like I can scream for the New York Knicks.
That's right.
I want to root for every community leader out there for the championship and for the triumphs that
Thank
you do
you.
every day that people do not give you enough credit for. So yes, there are still things that the media will outline. They're going to show you the black face who committed a crime. They're going to show you the person who looked crazy and not well put together. They're going to continue to tell you the images that they want you to have. And we now have cameras. We have new powers in our hands. AI technology can help you write the policy that you want to figure out tomorrow. You can have it done in the next hour. You can have it done in the next 5 minutes.
That's
to
right.
whatever idea you wanted to protect their babies. There's no limitation. We got the video cameras to show who we are. We got the AI to make sure our grammar and all the different spells and grimoire they want to put on us is in our power. We just got to take it. We got to take the translation and what we want. And then we got to go to Africa. We got to get our island people, and we got to all work together in a network of leverage, a network of marketplace, and a network of negotiation that we do. The same way they go with their people and negotiate resources, we have that same power. That is the greatest underlining asset of American black youth, is our ability to be able to be partners with international black faces around the globe.
Yes.
And we're wasting it every day trying to harm our kids to be in prisons and do low, cheap labor versus the empowerment what this country could truly be with those who own the country that have the skin that we have because of the efforts that have been put on this land. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that was
So
good.
yeah, so we got 5 people in this room right now who understand completely, who understand that the upliftment of fallen humanity is our duty. But we got about 500,000 people out there who's content with where they are right now.
Status quo.
Middle class, yeah.
Status
And I
quo.
know, brother, so I think we spoke last night. You said this last night, and I asked this question quite a bit. How do we start to get them to see or to understand the system, because they came through it and it worked for them?
I would say talk to them in the position you want them to already be in. Meaning talk to them as if they already know what it is. Because what I realize is you got to talk people up to the level you want them to be. When I meet people anywhere I go, I talk to them as if we are intellectual peers, not that I have something to just teach them, right? If you just example it, it brings up the consciousness. It's not something you have to force. It is natural. It's innate in our people. That's what I'm trying to say. The nature of who we are don't got to be taught. It just got to be understood and used more, right? Because again, if I come in here and the favorite song that we know and somebody start to groan, and we all going to repeat it and recycle it.
Yeah.
So all we have to do is take the frequency that we know we already play with, stop letting them play us in our face and use it for negative things, and use that same educational frequency to change everything about who we are. That's the
do it.
technology they've never mastered. That's the technology they're jealous of.
That's
Because
right.
they see the energy. They see that I go anywhere, Detroit, I can go to Midwest, say, do that little nod. We have a connection that they can't understand. We got to
true.
embrace that language. We got to weaponize it, not in a way to harm, but in a way that allows for our charm and our abilities and our efforts to almost stop looking at what they're doing as the final solution and give a different propaganda narrative to what we are doing versus letting them allow us to keep repeating the narratives they want us to. Whether it's a party narrative, who's having the party? Who's celebrating? Not us.
Right.
Right? So we have to start to say, we want these demands, and start to push that on it, to have that put. And I'm not the first to say these things, right? It's just us embracing that we have to talk to people to what level we want them to be at, not what we think they are. That means if they look homeless in that moment, get to know who they are. Don't look at them in their condition. Look at who they are as a person, and then talk them up to their fullest potential. Then you're going to see that person had a transformation. We're living that. working with people over 10-year span that have changed their lives, just talking life into them regardless of whatever that current state is, that mental health crisis, that medicated state, whatever it may be. That's a current state. That is not who that person is. Reminding people of their nature and really them seeing people who can do that frees it. It's like an instant cleanse when people see what they can be. So just be the best version of yourself everywhere you go, and that energy will permeate.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Yeah, you mentioning the tech, the AI, all that stuff quite a bit. So the education tech level and how, talk to us about that a little bit.
And again, for my people, I thank you all again for just giving the opportunity just to speak to these conversations. So I don't want to overtake, but I do believe, and Brother Ausar and I know from years ago, social media was the first democracy on the media, right? Us being able to tell our own stories and give our own narrative to the stories, right? And we're even talking about the case you mentioned earlier, right? If there was one narrative, you would see it as is, and we would write our own people off, right? But when you have competing narratives, now you got to use your conscious effort, not just because you want to choose a side, but now you have different level of consciousness. Someone's not telling you what the final answer is, right? So that was stage one. Now with AI, oh my goodness, right? Let me just put it this way. I don't want to make AI complicated, because all you got to do is Google it, meaning that Google is one of the most powerful free AIs right now, that just about every answer you want, you go to Google Gemini, right? So you don't got to get the Chat GPTs and all these other big high-level names, right? It's not the name of who the tool is. It's about your ability to create a command. I always say to people, if you lived in a world today where you can almost make a genie wish, that the thing you want to appear, the visual image, the website you wanted, the document you need, the policy written, it's just one command away in an AI prompt that you could say, boom, this is what I want to see. And that AI will go to work for you instantly, right now, not because I'm saying it, right now, right? And we talk about the others. They're using these tools, and they're going to do the same thing. They're going to use it to get advantage on others, take as much money as they can, because that is their culture. That's their system. Capitalism has never been our culture. Our culture is the value of who we are.
That's right.
The energy and the way we make each other feel at a family reunion, the welcomeness you feel at a church, the thing, even when you're incarcerated, the love you can still feel from a brother in your cell, or somebody that you can truly build with, because we have something so special. And all they want to do is beat that out of us and take it out because they've never seen it before. Why are you so happy when you have nothing? I went to Africa. Same thing. People look like they have nothing. We will visually to look at it, but so happy.
It's true.
The joy. It's unbelievable. That's the true inheritance that we all have. So I think when it comes to AI can visualize and realize the grumblings that we have with this current system and allow for us to transform it. Write a prompt right now. How can I create a document right now to overcome injustices? Right now, AI can give it to you. Right? I have a policy idea. Why, when we're looking at reparations, let me just throw this to my people, right? I want everything that's you all as a community, as a black, diaspora, for historically foundational black people, whatever, to get everything they deserve. But one thing that would help to the movement that we've talked about for years is just imagine a part of a package that we could probably demand that every black person gets a free passport. Mm-hmm. So as much as you either love us or you hate us, we have the right to come and go as we need to, right, around the diaspora without no hesitation, without a fee to entry to get that passport, almost a given to you as a right, as a first level of apology. I'm going to give you a passport because you were kidnapped, because you were stolen. I'm going to give you the opportunity to choose to stay here or choose to go where you need to figure out if there's a better life for you out there. Good. Just imagine that one sentiment could change it all. Passport ready is what I call it, right? If we can get into that position, right? Stage one, right? I'm not asking you for money. I'm saying give every black body a passport for free in this country. Because if you don't like us so much, we could choose to leave, or we can figure out how we have the empowerment to make international headwinds to really change things. That's the thing. Again, it's the negotiation. Give me a chance. I'll go talk to them and tell them the value they're missing out by the way they treat us in schools, by the way they look at us as something to put into a prison, right? You're missing out on the true, and that's all they want to hear. They want money. They want economics. So let's talk their language enough that we get what we want out of them, but at the same time, we know, keep our eyes open. We ain't foolish, right?
That's right.
And at the same time, we got to stop wanting what they got. So they don't have nothing to take from us. But what we do have is the
That's
things
good.
that are innate to us that we already love. Some food at the family, like the things we have that we devalue, and they're teaching us to devalue it for the things of their stuff.
That's
And it
right.
was our greatest asset was our family.
Right. Or they take it from us and then sell it back to us.
There you go.
And they make us want what we had originally.
There you go.
Right.
And then we call it misappropriation, but remember, like you said, Brother Michael, we don't have the same economy, so we don't do business in the same manner. And I think it always shows historically that when they come upon shore, they take everything that probably the indigenous don't even want. You know, it's like it's so common that's not what our
We don't look for land. See, if we think about their mentality from where they come from,
That's right.
land is scarce in Europe.
right.
So what they do, they spread out, whether to Africa or to the Americas, to South, and they took land
Right.
because they came from a scarcity of land. And so they make land into a thing that becomes a territory. And what you got to do when you have land? You got to have that Second Amendment. You got to have that weapon to protect that land.
Right.
So it's their systems in itself that's created the discourse of violence,
It's true.
that's created the mentality of lack, and then thus the abundance that was given to us from the Creator himself. The universe so abundant that we don't even know if there's other life or not out there. But somehow we fighting for things. I live in rural communities. I pass land every day. You gonna tell me these people you hauling out of here can't live anywhere? There's no place you could put a housing development something?
That's right.
Right? Because they're valuing that capitalistic money. I'm not someone who isn't a capitalist. Like, I understand the value of capitalism, but I make sure my capitalism cares. I make sure my capitalism, if I'm aware enough of how to get to it and how to make it happen, I make sure I'm giving to my people. So don't ever look for me to say I'm the richest man, because I'm quick to be Mansa Musa and give it to my people's hands. That's the thought process we got to start having. Not, I think people challenge some of our entertainer leaders for that same reason, right? Because they're like, you have so much and you're bragging about it. But what are you doing for the people, not just in rhetoric, not just an example, but true actions? I'm not saying they're not doing anything, but there will never be enough when we want what they have and brag about what they have. That's the point. It's a trick because consumerism feeds capitalism.
Yes, right. And you can never have enough. That's the other issue, is that rejection creates a yearning to be accepted. And so they market, they almost create the conditions to keep you consuming.
That's so good.
And so we have to be reminded that what we're dealing with, that's why it's so important for us to, first of all, like you said, arrest yourself. Understand who you are first. Know thyself, Brother Ausar. Know yourself. Because if not, everything that flashes before you will become an attraction, whether you need it or not. And so they'll always constantly be telling you that you need. And then they'll be selling you back stuff to you that you don't need, or stuff that you already had, like these terms. Affordable housing. Excuse me?
Right. Right.
My ancestors been here for 400 years and plus. We should be able to afford anything that we want.
You said that.
Excuse me? I don't want DEI.
Right.
I'm already diverse. We come in different flavors and colors. We already diverse. And your equity, you already owe me. You can't sell me something that you already owe me. Okay, hold on. It's called sweat equity. My ancestors already built your entire, what you call, a country. Yeah. So when are we going to say, excuse me, stop the game, stop the, brothers say, propaganda, the marketing, and that's why true education is so important, because when you arrest your own mind from capitalism and the lies of America, because America in itself is a religion.
There you go. You said that. You said it's powerful.
That was real good.
I like to add something, and this is from two of our greats, Dr. John Henry Clark, and he spoke about the purpose of education is to learn how to attain power and manage power. I'm paraphrasing.
It's good.
And then Kwame Ture, right, another one of our greats, he said that one of the main purposes of education is to alleviate the pain of the suffering.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just want to add them two quotes.
Brother, break it down, bro.
That's why I thought
break
I
it
thought it was
down,
gonna go into it.
Well, I mean,
Give us the science.
Okay,
I
I think that, we can go to Shetawat Netta, right? And Brother Mike been speaking on nature all day.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Shetawat Netta, Shetawat being the mystery, secrets, that which is hidden. Netta being nature, cosmic forces, creation, creator, right? So Shetawat Netta teaches us, Shetawat Netta enjoins, which means instructs. Shetawat Netta enjoins the protection of the weak and oppressed, right? So when Kwame Ture is talking about the purpose of knowledge and education is to alleviate the pain of the suffering, right? And we know that as a people that they have us at the bottom of the totem pole, right? So our energies and our efforts as African people, our education has got to be towards liberation, has got to be towards alleviating pain and suffering, manage power, which I think is the key, because in order to manage power, you have to have power. And spiritual power, psychological power, mental power, physical power, economic power, cultural power, all the powers that are necessary is the power that we have to attain so that we can manage.
Beautiful. Now, of course, we down to the final 5 minutes real quick, so I want to ask each one of y'all to leave your final thoughts with this from this question. Beyond the test scores, what does an educated black child look like in 2026?
Well, I think honestly, test scores wouldn't even be an issue. We excel in everything if left alone. So the issue is not test scores. The issue is what are we conditioning our children to believe or to say that they are in order for us to define education. Test scores should not define education. And they could be two different things. Just because even if you have a system, and I've taught before, even if all of the children excel in test scores, it doesn't mean you were properly educated. And the content that you receive may be incorrect. So us excelling does not, if you wiped out all the social issues that we have and they were just free, I believe we would ace everything that was put on the table. But that still does not define true education. And what we want for our people is true education so we can produce. Because remember, I think one of our brothers just said, the definition of education should also yield a certain outcome. Test scores doesn't always yield best outcomes in our community. And that's what we should be looking for, is what do we set in place so we can get the outcomes that we should have in our community. But
yeah, the message that I want to just leave for the listening audience is to study our history.
Yes.
Study our great scholars, our great historians, our great anthropologists, our great revolutionaries. And like and also I would like to thank our two great guests,
yes.
For sharing their knowledge and wisdom with us. So I would just say, to the listening audience, the value of knowing thyself. Like the brother he kept talking about AI, right? And Chat GPT and things of that nature, right? You can use those. It's what you put in it, right? So look up your African Americans, black historians, authors, scholars, revolutionaries, and start the journey of learning who we are as a people. I am because we are therefore I am. I think it's important that when we talk about the self, we understand from an African perspective, the self includes the whole. We have a universal self and we have an individual self.
That's
and when
right.
you come into knowledge and you come face to face with the universal self, you realize that you are that universal self.
Yes.
Yes, sir. And I thank you again for having me as a guest. I truly appreciate it. I know we shared a lot. So the thing I would say on behalf of kind of myself and my wife is where we're at today is focus. I would say the key to everything right now is focus.
That's good.
We have to focus as the elders. We have to focus as the parents in the room. We have to focus as the adults. And there are too many things trying to distract us. So I have a quote I always say is, focus is the distraction to distractions. So the more you're focused, the more you start to manifest what you truly want. And the distractions are designed for you to manifest what others want for you. And so that focus, that ability to really utilize the mind is so key. That's why, again, we're inventors in this season, right? We
Yes.
consider ourselves not innovators, but inventors. We create things from the origin, something original. So I would say that, and, definitely check out what we're working with the ChiMax game. It's CHIMAX game. It's designed to help our minds really improve, and that's the key. This game helps you with your focus. It helps you with being able to grow, and we believe this is going to be the change game of the future to really help our children to get through the gaps that people believe they have.
Brother, before you close out, I really like that because I know you had expressed that to me before about the ChiMax game and stuff. And, before the summer's out, we would really love to connect with y'all and, let some of
We look
our
forward to
children
that.
learn the game ChiMax and how it helps with the mind and it helps with memory.
We're excited because you're going to see the growth in them. Yeah. Say something, love.
Very quickly, when I think about what the educated black child looks like, we all have power words up here. We hear focused. We hear imagination. I'd add joy, like helping them recenter their joy again, and what that feels like, and not just they're happy because of something that happened,
That's right.
because they're feeding them fads all the time.
That's true.
And so I share with people from the ground that are raising black boys and girls. You have to be that change you want to see. And so if you whatever excuse you can make up that your child is doing what they're doing because, then I want to say I'll exercise that excuse by creating avenues for your child to learn. And that if that means you going to find a lightning bug in the country again to help them understand the power of God's creation and how it can activate them, then do that.
Lightning bugs.
Exactly. Putting their feet on the ground again, feeling the essence of the power of that energy, and also teach black children understanding frequency and to understand the power of I feel like I'm in a race of teaching my kids marketing so that they don't drink the Kool-Aid. Right.
It's true.
So an educated child is one that is focused on being the next trend and not following the next trend.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'd
Close
like
out.
to
That's
say,
a good close
first of all, thank you to our guest, Brother Michael, lovely wife, Shemeka. Of course, always an honor with Queen Dr. Kimberly Muktarian and
Bless
the
you
Honorable
all.
Brother
Thank you.
Ausar.
Bless you.
And as we close, our children deserve schools to see them, hear them, and they must be protected, and we must teach them with dignity. Remember, proper education always corrects error. Peace.